Greetings and welcome to another VR dev update for the game that I have in development, my magnus opus, my grand scale space exploration trading game in VR. Oh, look at this. Oh, look, we're getting an eclipse. Hold on, let me see if I can show you this. I can't actually see where the sun is. Hopefully that's coming through on the recording. My little camera preview doesn't render things out to the distance of the sun. Yeah, I mean, planet's eclipse, which is really awesome. And it pretty much comes more or less for free out of the way that Unity shadows work, which is not to say that it's easy. I mean, making Unity shadows work is a continuous battle at the scales and the scope that I'm trying to make them work at. They were never designed to work on planetary scales. But the fact that they even do at all, frankly, I think is a bit of a, it's a plus point. It's something that Unity can be very proud of. And whether we keep that, whether we keep the kind of, shadows being cast by planets on other planets just as part of the normal system instead of coming up with a kind of a cheaty way of doing it, which would probably work just as well and maybe be a little bit more efficient. But for the time being, we're just going to leave it as is. And frankly, it's not the point of this video today. We're not going to here to talk about shadows. We're here to talk about far more important things. Speaking of important things, have you noticed my mustache? Look at my mustache. It's wobbling around. It's wobbling around, hopefully, more or less in time with the cadence of my voice, or at least the loudness of my voice. That's why that's what I intended anyway. It came about because I was watching this thing. It's like a VR news thing on YouTube. I forget what it's called now. This is Norm from Tested, and this is the other guy from Tested. It's the Tested VR news bit, which is really good, by the way. You should check it out. I'll try and link it in the description. And I apologize should whoever the other guy is from Tested, if he ever happens to watch this video, the fact that I couldn't remember his name, but it's really good. Anyway, this is all besides the point. I was watching a video they did with another guy whose name completely escapes me, who was doing a thing called Foo, which is kind of like an in VR show that you can watch, in which he interviews other VR devs and stuff, and he was also talking about, look, we're getting another eclipse is happening. Let me see if I can show you this. He was talking about sort of VR presentation, which is something that's very close to my heart as well. There you go. Hopefully that was really cool, and I was actually pointing the camera at it. What I think is something that's really powerful and as yet not really very well tapped and very well understood in VR development and in VR presentation and things like YouTubing VR games is how to portray the VR experience. And this is really, this I think is really powerful, this kind of like, presenting to a camera in three-dimensional space and being able to, like, he had his mouth moving, an actual mouth kind of, moving more or less in time with speaking. He had little eyes as well, which would track around and point at different things when he was looking. I haven't bothered with the eyes, and rather than put a mouth, I just thought I'd wobble the mustache. Anyway, look, that is all a complete aside. We're getting yet another eclipse. There are two moons. They both orbit very, very quickly, and indeed the sun is sinking towards the horizon as we speak, so we should probably crack on, because none of that really is the point of the subject of today's video. What I wanted to talk about today is the planetary system a little bit more. I've been doing a lot of work on the planetary system. As you can see, my environment is much more detailed. I'm in like a little settlement here that I've put on the planet's surface, and this has all come about with my new level of detail system that I've had to work up, because when you're creating VR apps, VR games, your poly budget is way more restricted than with a regular game. You can afford to be pretty lazy, actually, when it comes to game development, as long as you're not trying to push any graphical envelopes too much. Modern system, modern hardware, and indeed modern engines like Unity are so good that you can really get away with an awful lot. Not so true in VR. You've got to be much tighter on your control of what you're rendering, and you've got to use all sorts of tricks like batching. You've got to try and reuse meshes in as many ways and stuff as possible. You've got to use some clever tricks with shaders and stuff to get performance, and that's been a lot of what I've been focusing on, and I'm pretty happy with where I'm getting to. Certainly it could be better, and it could yet improve some more. I've also done a lot on the work on the way that the planets themselves render, which is what I'm going to kind of concentrate on today. I might talk a little bit more about the level of detail stuff in another video if people are interested, and indeed the way the worlds, the planets are kind of put together to facilitate that. But in the meantime, we're losing the light here a little bit. Let me just grab this we'll head out over this way. So let's just wander on over to this. You probably can't see it because I'm like right in the way at the moment. See that little blue box over there? Yeah, we're gonna go to the little blue box. It's something that I was absurdly pleased with, and I kind of commented about it on Twitter, and no one really picked up on it. So you know, maybe it wasn't quite as cool as I thought it was. Look at the sun. The sun is much bigger. I scaled the sun up by a factor of 10. I think I might have overscaled it slightly. I think it might be a little bit too big. I feel a bit like I'm Mario or something with this mustache. Hey, look at my mustache! I apologise for the, you know, the racially insensitive accent that I just tried there. All right, here we go. Look, so this. Let me just put my little torch hand on. There we go. Here's my torch hand. This is the Develator 1000 Weird Engine Inc. Develator. Do you get it? Develator. It's like an elevator, but it's my little dev tool for getting around the planets and sort of getting up and down really quickly. It's not actually going to make it into the final game, or at least not. It possibly as an Easter egg or something somewhere. But the idea of this is just to give me, rather than, I kept spawning like a ship and I'd have to mess about actually piloting the ship in order to just fly from like one settlement to another, or to go up and check the planet from above, which frankly was a pain. So I created this, which I also like to think of as my little blue box. And just to complete the triumvirate of coolness, it's kind of like a great glass elevator, only there's no glass. So it's like the great glassless elevator. Yeah? Did you get that reference? Anyway, let's jump in. Here we go. Where's my camera? So the controls are pretty straightforward. It basically ignores all the laws of physics. The laws of physics do not govern this vehicle. It simply goes up and down, and it tracks over the surface of planets. So it tracks over the surface of planets using this, staying at the same altitude it was at when you started moving, and it goes up and down using this. So let's go up a little bit. Hold on, let's just stop it. If we look back, we've probably gone too far already. Look, you can see the... I just love the celestial dance that goes on with the planets like rising and setting all over the place all of the time. Yeah, the level of detail system does handle both stepping down the detail of the models as you get further away, and indeed unloading them all together and recreating them when you get close to the various parts of the planet. These planets are huge, even though they're tiny as far as real planets go. This particular planet I'm on right now, I'm currently testing it at 80 kilometers radius, which, like I said, is tiny for a planet. I mean, even for an asteroid, that's pretty small. But it's still huge. I mean, it's still absolutely vast. We might be able to go a little bit bigger than that, but you start running it. When I was talking about poly budgets and problems with sort of, you know, creating stuff in VR, if it was not in VR, I could happily go way bigger without any real problems. So, like, I can talk about that a bit more in another video if people are interested. The way in which the worlds are constructed, they're basically constructed using the same concept as they used in Kerbal Space Program. That's where I got the idea. I watched the Unite video they did a few years back, which was a very high-level presentation on how they did their planets. Basically, you warp a cube into a sphere, and you take each face of the cube and you divide that by 4 to create 4 smaller like faces, and then you can divide each of those by 4 and each of those by 4 and each of those by 4, and those provide your levels of detail. So at the highest level of detail, when you're as far away from the planet as you need to be, you just see one face for that entire thing. But when you're right down on the surface, you have the lowest level of detail. You go down through a quadri to be able to render at a high resolution the area around you, and then as you get further away, as you view stuff that's further away from you, it goes up and up and up. I could probably explain it better. If you're interested, you could always watch the Unite presentation from Kerbal Space Program, because I'm sure they'd probably explain it better than I could. Anyway, look, we're losing the sun again, so we'll go up. We're going up. So in the previous video, you saw my sort of fly away from the planets, and the planets became very crude. So what I was using, I was using just vertex colors for the planets at that point. So as you drop down through those levels of detail I was talking about, the actual like visual detail on the planet had to drop as well, because, you know, the triangles that make up the planet's surface were getting bigger and bigger, and a given triangle could only be one color. Now, I quite liked stylistically the idea behind that. Look, here we go. We're pretty high up now. But in the end, I decided that it was simply too crude, and more importantly, it didn't let you recognize the details of a planet. So, you know, you could maybe recognize continental outlines, but that was about it. That was about as far as you could go. You couldn't really recognize any finer details about the planet, and you ought to have been able to with the sort of scales and distances that these things were happening. So, what I've done is, if I just show you the planet, there's the planet down below. The planets now have a texture map. They also have biome maps, so you can have a variety of biomes on the surface of the planet, and those can be defined by different things. All the biomes can have different colors within them for different sort of components of that biome, so you can have a different color and indeed reflectivity for slopes beyond a certain angle, or for flat land, or for, you know, something that's beside this, or like basically anything that I can define a rule for, I can create like that, which is pretty good. Based off of that, I also create a texture map and a normal map. So as I get further and further away, the detail of this planet is probably already pretty crude. If we were just viewing the triangles themselves, you wouldn't be able to make out any of those mountains, you wouldn't be able to make out any of the sort of like finer bumps and details on the surface. That would all have gone. Anyway, it's all probably a little bit technical. Whether or not you're interested in that degree of detail as to what I'm doing, I don't know. I kind of wanted to show the planets off. Really, ultimately, you don't have to worry about how I did it or how it's done or anything else. The main thing is just the difference now between the quality of the planets when you see them from far away. They're so much more detailed now, and you really can recognize. I mean, the actual surface of that planet is just being created by a very simple noise algorithm at the moment. In the end, there'll be much more detailed height maps being generated, partly through noise algorithms, partly through handcrafting, I suspect. So, you know, at the moment you've just kind of got splurges of mountain mixed with splurges of flat/undulating plains. But the fact that you can see those splurges of mountains, and you can see the individual peaks of those mountains, even when you're as far away from the planet as we are now, it makes the whole thing feel much more real. It makes it feel much more immediate. It feels, you know, very cool, especially in virtual reality. I can, shall I just take us back down? Take us back down. Look, you're getting a moon rising around the limb of the planet there. We'll take us back down. Just to close the video out, I don't know if there's any way I can kind of... I suppose I could just jump out. I don't know if that would be quicker. It's probably not going to be quicker. I think the elevator is probably faster than me falling under gravity. I just want to kind of... I want to get in shot. Get in shot. I can crouch down. Hold on. I can crouch down. Maybe I won't crouch down. It doesn't move my body. When I crouch down, it just pushes the head down through the body, which of course is just freaky and strange. Yeah, sorry. I apologize for the relatively amateurousness of this video. I really should script these and sort of like pre-prepare them and figure out how exactly I'm going to present them beforehand. But frankly, I don't have time most of the time. I'm fortunate if I can find the time just to record these videos at all. But I do want to do them a lot more frequently. I would like this to be maybe like a weekly thing. I don't know if I could fill like the time in a weekly thing talking about the technical stuff, or indeed not talking about technical stuff. I could just demonstrate stuff as they become available, so literally, you know, fairly quick videos, just if I've tweaked or improved the planetary generation, then I can just run around it or fly up into space or something like that. Here we go, look, we're plummeting towards the ground at great speed. We won't go through it, it's fine. As you can see, as we get close to the ground, scatter generates. Scatter generates all over the place. Let's hop out of the elevator. The Develator, sorry. Develator. It's a cool name, right? Hop out of the Develator. So this is just some random point on the planet. The scatter's generated based on the biome, and at the moment this planet only really has 3 biomes. It has like these kind of undulating plains, it has slopes, and it has peaks. But of course it can have as many biomes as I wanted, really. There's probably practical limits of maybe 256. I'll probably use a byte array or something like that for storing them in, but that still leaves a lot of room for a lot of biome diversity on planets, and that's something that I really want. I mean, other games have disappointed when you get sort of relatively few biomes. This is a whole planet. It should have a whole planet's worth of biomes. Now, maybe not Earth levels of diversity, because frankly that's very difficult to do, and there are things, you know, I'm pushing my poly budget by just having a fairly sparse environment like this. Now there's a certain amount that I can do with optimization. There's a certain amount that I can do with other sort of tricks and stuff to be able to make environments a little bit busier. I can also try and create sort of like canyon lands and stuff where I can have a lot of detail packed into some small spaces, with then sort of like vast sort of areas with not very much in them very nearby, so that I can kind of focus all of the polygons into one small space and it won't look sort of awkward. But practically speaking, most of the worlds are probably going to be fairly barren. There's going to be lots of Arctic worlds, there's going to be lots of tundra worlds, of desert worlds. Water worlds is another one that would probably be very doable because it's mostly just sea with the occasional island, and you can maybe make those islands a little bit more detailed, which could be nice. But we'll see how that develops. Even as it is, I'm pretty happy with it. I think this would be fine, given that this is really a game about flying spaceships around. And indeed, you know, the planet side stuff, I want it to be a significant gameplay component, but you know, this isn't going to be this isn't going to be Fallout, you know. This isn't going to be Skyrim. You're not going to be spending hours humping your way around on the planet's surface on foot, well, unless you maybe, you know, jump out of your spaceship or like eject in your escape pod and find yourself on the planet's surface, and have to, like, you know, make your way on foot to some nearby settlement or something cool like that. That would be awesome. Yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about gameplay components like that more in the future. We'll also talk about some of the like the other mechanics and the other stuff that's currently in the engine and other things that are coming soon in another episode. Anyway, I think that's probably enough for now. I've been rambling on about all sorts of stuff. I really value your comments and feedback. There was a lot of great comments off the last dev video. One of the ones that I love that I've not had a chance to implement yet is actually turning this external camera thing into a drone that I can fly around. I think we could do some really cool stuff with that by having look, I'm losing the lights. Why do we always lose the light? Let me just come around here. I'll try and catch that. Like I said, I probably can't see it. Oh no, I can see it. It's alright, it's all good. So yeah, there we go. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. I think we're probably going to wrap it up there. If you have any comments or suggestions, do let me know, because it's really great getting feedback like that. One of the things which is kind of being decided right now is the name of the project. The leading contender is Worlds Above. That's the one that I've kind of bounced off people and it's generally gotten the best feedback. So I'd love to hear your feedback on that as a title, possibly with a strapline on it. Other contenders were things like Transtacular and Transcredible, and Littleverse. Littleverse is what the project was called internally for quite a long time, but I think it undersells it. The scale and the scope of what this actually is turning into is quite breathtaking for me. Anyway, like sometimes I worry quite often that I've bitten off a little bit more than I can chew with this. But to be fair, it is coming together, and when those like bits start to lock together, when we start getting space stations in orbit and the flight mechanics of the ships really starts to come together, and like multiple ships and the trading components, some of the combat elements, when all of these things come together, I hope it's going to be a pretty unique product, at least within the virtual reality sphere. Yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to showing you guys some more as well. I'll try and make these dev update videos a little bit more frequent, maybe a little bit more focused. Let me know if there's anything you want to hear about, or if indeed you know, some of the technical details is just overkill, or indeed if you want to hear more about the technical details and some of the way that some of the stuff is actually coded and put together. But that will all, of course, have to wait for another video. Until then, thanks a lot for watching, everyone. I have been Weird Wizard, and I will see you later.